Welcome back, everybody, to the G and Finn Show here on 92.1 FM Rebel Radio. We're coming to you live from Oxford, Mississippi. It's another beautiful cold Monday. My name is George Ruggiero.
And I'm John Finnegan.
And we're going to jump right into it. This past weekend, number one LSU came to town. Ole Miss ended up losing that game 58-37. There were some really good takeaways from this game. What are your first thoughts on that one, John?
I mean, whenever you've got the number one team in the country coming to town, it's going to be a challenge, especially when it's an SEC West rivalry. LSU does not like Ole Miss, and the feeling's mutual. So, heated rivalry. I mean, Magnolia Bowl's always going to get a little interesting. Got away from Ole Miss early. Made it interesting towards the end, but eventually fell with a couple late touchdowns for LSU.
Yeah, this game was really a tale of two halves. The first half was all LSU. Ole Miss seemed like they couldn't get anything going at all. And then they came alive in the second half. I don't know what the coaching staff said at halftime to this team. I don't know what got them motivated, but it must have been something fiery because they came alive in the second half. I mean, overall, in general, they put up 400 rushing yards against a team that was averaging only 100 against all season.
And, I mean, that's, of course, the way of the land with the Ole Miss offense, at least the second half of this season. But, I mean, you look at the beginning of the game, LSU got out to a 28-0 lead early.
Yeah.
And that wasn't with us getting to the red zone and faltering. That wasn't a couple missed field goals. We had nothing. When they went up 28-0, I didn't see any way we could make this game even remotely close.
No, when I saw that, I thought we were dead in the water. I seriously thought, this is it. We're going to get blown out like we usually do if we go to Alabama, the last couple of years. That's what I expected when they went up 28-0,
And, yeah, it's the game. It's the kind of game they were having. But all of a sudden, I mean, yeah, you break off a couple long runs. Plumlee gets really involved with his legs, as he loves to do. And all of a sudden, you blink, and it's a two-score game with 13 minutes left.
Yeah, wait, was that 13 minutes left in the game?
Yeah.
Was that 2 scores at that point? I thought it was only like midway through the third quarter.
You might be right.
But still, I mean, for Ole Miss to be even getting that close to a team that, they're 21-point favorites, that ended up being a push on the spread, 21 even. Ole Miss, the offense looked good. It really looked good, and this was a strong LSU defense to come against. We put up 402 total rushing yards. JRP had himself a night. 212 yards on the ground. All of his touchdowns were running. He had 4 of them. 4 rushing touchdowns by our quarterback. None of our other running backs, none of our running backs actually scored. All of our touchdowns were by JRP.
And one of the most exciting parts about that to me, we've always known Plumlee could do it with his legs, but this was by far his best game as a ball carrier, at least. And you look at just a couple of illuminating statistics for me. The last quarterback that scored 4 touchdowns on the ground against LSU, Cam Newton. Last quarterback with 200 yards on the ground against the best team in the country, Vince Young. So, obviously in excellent company. Let's see if he can start doing it with his arm, too, because if he can, he's going to be an exceptionally dangerous threat for any other team in the SEC.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this game. Even the passing game seemed more efficient. Both quarterbacks played not just both quarterbacks, but John Rhys Plumlee and Matt Corral both played this game. Total combined, they went 15-27, which that's around 50-ish%. That's not great. Could be better. Could be worse, though. And 212 yards through the air. The biggest thing for me there is that Matt Corral threw for a touchdown. That throw to, who was it? Elijah Moore. That quick slant route he just took to the house. Oh, I mean, of course. But that slant route that he took to the house, if they can keep that going, but with one quarterback or both, I don't see how this offense slows down.
Yeah, and we did. One thing I was really happy to see is we did get Cooley, I don't want to say involved, but we got him the ball once, a couple targets, both real tough to catch, so no harm, no foul there. But the one he did haul in took for 29 yards.
Yeah, I think I've been harping on it all season that you need to get him involved. I think that showed why, because this wasn't like, oh, he's the tight end, throw it down the seam and he gets it. This was a short pass that he took up field. He had space, and he took it.
It was a tight end play. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you want out of your tight ends until you get to the red zone when it kind of fundamentally changes. But for me, I didn't realize how many yards Elijah Moore had. 9 catches, 143 yards.
Yeah, he had a good game.
Including that 55-yard scamper. But for me, kind of the difference in this game was we couldn't keep up with their offense, which when you've got a Heisman favorite and a potential first overall pick coming to town, obviously it's going to be challenging to stop that. And he threw a couple interceptions, but he threw 5 touchdowns, and he threw for 500 yards.
Yeah,
He had a heck of a game.
that's the thing. I look at that and I'm like, we picked him off
Yeah,
twice.
we picked him up twice.
Sure, but does that really matter when he also throws for 5 touchdowns and almost 500 yards and completes like 76% of his passes again?
On 42 attempts.
Yeah, it's not like he's throwing it, 20 times and completing most of them. He's throwing 42 times.
He completed twice as many passes as both Ole Miss quarterbacks combined
Yeah.
on 5 more attempts. Or I'm sorry,
No, 15 more.
significantly more
Yeah,
attempts.
a lot
So
more tries at it.
They weren't afraid to sling it with him, which for me that says you have an immense amount of faith in your quarterback to not cause turnovers, not need to bother running out the clock when you can just run up the score. And why wouldn't you? If you've got Joe Burrow, at least this year's Joe Burrow on your team, what reason has he given you not to trust him?
He hasn't really given you any. And what's really interesting to me about this LSU team is if you watch this offense, and this to me is what makes Joe Burrow such an interesting prospect for the next level, is that this LSU offense is essentially just I don't want to say oversimplified because there are some NFL teams that play the same way. It's just an NFL offense. Just short passes to the out. Oh, excuse me. Not all NFL offenses run like this, but this is a very NFL scheme.
A pro-style
Yes,
offense.
quote, pro-style offense. There are NFL teams that run the same scheme. Short passes to the outside, let your receivers do the work, and then whenever you can get short routes or even a deep ball down the sideline, man-to-man coverage, you take that. And that's what he's been so successful at doing, and that's what makes him, to me, such an interesting pickup for any NFL team that takes the chance on him.
And you look at their skill position players. I mean, the 4 players who made the difference. This game I thought was going to be a lot more won and lost in the trenches, but for me, just exceptional performances from LSU in these facets. I mean, Joe Burrow, almost 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. QBR of 95. That's insane.
Yeah.
Edwards-Helaire, starting running back for LSU, 23 carries, 170 yards and a touchdown.
Great game.
LSU's top 2 receivers, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, 8 and 9 receptions, 230 and 110 yards, 3 and 2 touchdowns each.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Randy Moss's kid, Thaddeus?
Please.
He's so much, I don't want to say so much different than his dad, but they have a similar frame, but Thaddeus he's a tight end, isn't he? Because I saw him lining up on the line a lot. Like, I know he's 81, but so was his dad, and his dad was a wideout. I think Thaddeus is a tight end. Let me double check on that.
It almost feels like a kind of hybrid just because of the kid's frame. But
yeah, he's a tight end, but he's still number 81. But man, he's big, 6'3" and 250,
that's terrifying.
and he's not slow either. Like, he showed off his legs a couple times against us on Saturday. He's good. But even looking at his numbers with someone that skilled, I mean, do you think the tight end position is kind of underused altogether in the college game? Because on the year, he's only got 355 yards and a touchdown.
As an Ole Miss fan, I'd love to be able to say yes because we have a bad habit, at least the last few years, of criminally underutilizing our tight ends. For me, I think it's just there are only so many solid tight ends, especially at the college level. Even when you look at the NFL, where obviously the skill gap isn't nearly as large, but the skill ceiling's so much higher, if you look at it from a fantasy perspective, there's only really like 2 or 3 standout tight ends in the NFL. You look at college, I think it might be the same way. It's rare that you see a team like Iowa come out with 2 excellent NFL caliber tight ends.
True.
I think it might just be it's a prototype that's tough to fit because you need to be able to block and you need to be able to catch the ball. At the same time, you need to have the physical attributes where you're going to be bigger than the fast guys and faster than the big guys. I think that's a skill set that's really tough to find at the college level.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I mean, we're looking at guys like Evan Ingram that have come out, Dawson Knox, and now Cooley, who they have all those things, all the physical attributes, all the abilities in the world, yet they're not getting targets, they're not getting catches, they're not getting touchdowns.
And that's why I say, as an Ole Miss fan, I think so. But I haven't seen us really utilize the tight end to the best of their abilities since Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
And so is that a habit of many teams at the college level? I don't necessarily think so. If I'm LSU and I've got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Joe Burrow slinging it to him, you're not going to need to use your tight end.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
that's true. Yeah.
I think it's just that it's kind of the prototypical Bama problem where you've got all these exceptionally skilled guys, but there's someone just a little better on the team anyway.
Yeah, like who's the man out? Who's the odd man out there? I mean, even the same thing happened to Joe Burrow if you look at it when he was at Ohio State. Like, he's a grad transfer to LSU from last season, but that's just not because he couldn't cut it with Ohio State. They just picked up someone they liked better.
It's because there was another NFL quality starter.
Who was it? Was that Justin Fields? First year?
Suppose it was.
I think it was, yeah.
Yes, it was. So,
or it might have been Haskins last year.
It was Haskins last year.
And then
That's
they
what it
had
was.
Fields backing up. That's what it was.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, right?
And Joe Burrow on the
Come
same
on
roster.
now.
So, yeah, it's that blue blood problem where, you might very well be exceptionally talented, able to play at the next level. There's a guy we like a little more right now. And with the talent they have, I'm not too surprised. So maybe that's a problem that a lot of teams have. I wouldn't call it a problem for LSU. It might be a problem if you're a tight end on LSU. But, yeah, it's definitely an interesting facet of the college game. It's a rare skill set for tight ends.
Yeah, but overall, the game, I think, should be a lesson learned for this Rebel team. I mean, they got off to a slow start, but they made it close in that second half. They were resilient. I think that needs to be a huge, huge takeaway for the next game. And the next and final game of the Ole Miss season is the Egg Bowl in Starkville on Thanksgiving. We'll talk about that a little bit more on Friday night. Does that sound good to you?
I mean, we've got a... Yeah, I suppose we should, just because we're not going to be in the studio on Monday due to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think that's a good show. We'll preview that a little bit more on Friday. But while we did get some more Ole Miss news after the game, Matt Luke was extended through the 2020 season. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know if I have a whole lot apart from some other background things going on.
I think it's the kind of behavior you expect from Ole Miss, especially a school that right now is sorely lacking leadership. New chancellor, brand new chancellor, no athletic director, no real brand identity at a time where schools are starting all these campaigns to say, like, hey, this is really who we are. Ole Miss, that's something they've struggled with in recent years. Hiring Matt Luke in the first place was the safe hire. They took him in as an interim coach after Hugh Freeze. He won the Egg Bowl, and the Ole Miss faithful said, hey, that's all we need. We just needed you to keep the guys from transferring, and we needed you to beat Mississippi State. We don't care if you get 4, 5, or 6 wins. I think the coordinator hires were a big part of the reason he's staying. I think those were good splash hires, even though Rich Rod significantly underperformed, I think, what a lot of us expected. So I'm not too surprised. I'm hoping he can, he's got one more year of experience as a head coach under his belt. It's not his fault the guys that are transferring for a program that was real worried about it for a long time. Beyond that, I mean, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, the only thing, the big question for a lot of fans now is do we start thinking about changing coaches? And, yeah, he was extended. Well, was he extended, or did they just kind of give him the benefit of the doubt or the thumbs up, like, hey, we're sticking with you? I didn't know if it was a contract extension or what.
My understanding is it's not a formal extension of his contract, but
it's kind of just the head nod, you're our guy.
Normally when you want to tell a coach that, you'll need to extend them so they know, hey, I'm getting paid. If I get fired, I'm getting bought out. With Matt Luke, it's not like he's going to go coach somewhere else. It's kind of Ole Miss or nowhere else. So that's my current understanding. I may be incorrect.
Okay, then, yeah, on that note, with that in mind, the big question that I'm seeing a lot now is, does Mike McIntyre stay?
I mean,
because rumor has it,
family history.
exactly, family history, he went there, he worked there already, and rumor has it, he wants to go to Nashville and coach Vanderbilt just like his dad did. And I could actually see that being a really good fit for him. I mean, they always have a good defense. He could bring a new level of scheme to that defense that genuinely I think could make them a contender, just based on that. If they can shut people down, their offense doesn't have to do anything anyway.
They don't need to do anything special, at least. And that's kind of been how he's kept us in games so far. For me, I think the best part of McIntyre's coaching scheme, especially for, I mean, the reason he's done well at Ole Miss, the way we've played the last few years with the talent we've had the past few years, the thing that I think is going to make him a great fit at Vanderbilt is he makes his players outperform their stars. He makes his talent overperform how everyone expects them to be doing, and I think that's what you need at a school like Vanderbilt, where you're not getting the boatloads of 4 and 5 stars. You're getting good guys that you can turn into great players, but they're not starting off as SEC caliber starters when they're coming out of high school. I think that's a good part of his game. I wouldn't blame him. I'd be upset if it happened, but I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, that's the thing. It would be a lack of surprise for me, just like you. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, either this offseason or the next. Maybe he does want just another year of experience in the SEC as a coordinator. I get that. I would completely understand that. But if he gets the opportunity, and wants to take the next step and become a head coach, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, that's the natural progression, realistically.
Yeah, and you know what? You can't blame him at the end of the day.
No.
I think that's all I've got on Ole Miss football for now. What about you?
That's all I've got for Ole Miss.
All right, we'll be right back after this. We got a few upsets in the college football world, including a couple undefeateds. So we're going to go to a brief message, and we'll be right back in a few.
Welcome back, everybody, to the G and Finn Show. We're going to move on to around college football. We have a good couple upsets this weekend. The biggest one, in my opinion, was the Minnesota game. Minnesota was going into this game undefeated, but they were brought down by Iowa, 23-19. That's handing the Gophers their first loss of the season. What do you have on that one?
I feel like ever since the college football playoff began, Iowa's found some way to ruin somebody's season in Kinnick, Iowa. This year it was Minnesota, undefeated, finally ranked as high as a lot of people, especially Golden Gophers fans, as high as they thought they should be ranked.
Were they 9 going into that game?
They were 9 going into the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Iowa actually ranked. They were around 23 or 24,
8,
I want to say.
us. Minnesota was 8, actually.
Good game. It was close, 23-19. But first loss for Minnesota, I think that takes them out of contention.
I mean, it has to.
Unless something weird happens. Could still beat Ohio State later in the year.
You never know what's going to happen. I mean, they could beat Ohio State. I don't know if I see that happening necessarily, but they beat Penn State.
Look, Rutgers scored 20 points on Ohio State, so anything can happen any given Saturday.
Anything can happen. Another big win for the state of Iowa as Iowa State takes down Texas. Game-winning field goal. They win that game 23-21. Can I say horns down now, or will I get fined for that?
Well, actually, a funny story about that. So I was planning on going to SEC Nation in the Grove. We had it for 2016 Alabama, my freshman year. My roommate at the time went. It seemed like a ton of fun. I wasn't going to mind getting up too early. And I DM'd SEC Nation on Facebook just because I couldn't find the rules anywhere. Wanted to make sure it was just the normal rules, like, hey, no profanity, no politics, and just see what I can put on the sign, see if I can come up with something funny to make fun of LSU. And so I sent them, where can I find rules for signs in the crowd? And I got a message back on Saturday at 10 a.m. just before the show. No profanity, nudity, or horns down images.
Are you serious?
I swear to you, and I can show you the conversation
right
God.
Here.
But I love...
Wow.
And you know what? I was a Texas fan my first couple years of college. My senior prom date went there. I still think their colors are hideous. I think Austin's a fun town, though. But after seeing the way the fan base has reacted to that, it's kind of tough to root for.
That's comical, though.
I don't know. I don't want the
no horns down. There's so many other things about LSU that you could make fun of. So many different things that you could talk about. That's what they pick out. You can be... You could say anything. You could even talk about, LSU, the whole, FBI thing, whatever. Nope. Can't have horns down. Even though Texas isn't even playing there.
Completely different conference. Texas is playing in Iowa that day. So I thought that was hysterical.
Oh, man.
But game-winning field goal, I have no idea who Iowa State's kicker is.
Good
if
for
I
him.
did, I think that would mean I watched significantly too much college football, which is already arguable.
I mean, can we just say that? I mean, look at this. Brock Purdy outdueled Ellinger.
Yeah.
Iowa State's quarterback went for 354 and 2 touchdowns.
And you said a few weeks ago that you weren't a believer in Ellinger yet, and looks like he's kind of proven you right, at least in this stretch of the season.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ellinger had a good game. That's the thing. He actually had a really good game. 22 of 40, not great, just over 50%. 273 and 3 touchdowns, which that's fine. Like that's
a darn good game.
But I mean, when you get outdueled by Iowa State,
Let's go Cyclones, baby.
let's go Cyclones.
Other games, Georgia won at Jordan-Hare. That game was exceptionally boring.
Was it 21-14? That's
Believe so.
Jake
Jake
Fromm.
Fromm did throw all 3 touchdowns, despite throwing for just over 100 yards.
110 yards.
Apparently, always into the end zone.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, is that what you call pure efficiency?
I think it's laziness. Don't bother tiring your arm out. Just dump it off in the red zone. That's all you need.
Do you think Jake Fromm would do well with the Patriots then? Because
Please
I think
stop.
that's pure efficiency.
That, you know what? He's a very Patriots type quarterback.
Right?
They've already got an Auburn quarterback. Might as well tack on a Georgia one.
Yeah, why not?
Auburn put on their 14 points all in the fourth quarter. Made it kind of interesting towards the end, but I thought the Grove was an awful lot more interesting when that game was going on. Couldn't complete the comeback. And App State's 9-1 and ranked. I just
Who
realized
they beat this week? I know they won. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I think I've got it somewhere.
They beat Georgia State, which Georgia State's actually having a pretty solid season. They're 6-4, 3-3 in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, so nothing embarrassing.
No, not at all. App State though taking it 9 to they won that game 56-27. Like they
didn't keep it close.
Not at all.
The one, and I love G5 teams being good. I think App State has a good argument. In the case of conference realignment, they've got a good argument. But App State being ranked makes them beating Michigan a few years ago so much less hilarious.
Because they have a good team.
I know, and now it's not hilarious anymore. That's very upsetting to me as the roommate of a Michigan fan. But I think the game that really has the most interesting storyline this past weekend, another one of the undefeateds. Minnesota lost. Now Baylor lost, falling to Oklahoma after leading 31-10 at half.
That was such a good game.
But down 28-3 at one point in the second quarter. We all know that's the most dangerous lead in football. But for me, the most important and the most interesting part of this game...
I know where this is going. Is it who I think it is?
It's exactly who you think it is. You want to talk about it?
Oh, yeah, let's both talk about it a little bit because he's having himself a year. Jalen Hurts putting on an absolute show in this comeback win for Oklahoma. Sure, he didn't have the greatest game in their one loss on the season, but, I mean, look at this from him the other day. 30 of 42, solid, about... I think that was like 72%.
Something like that, yeah.
Almost 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, including the game winner.
What is going on in Lincoln Riley's head?
Keep in mind, also, Jalen Hurts, 27 carries, 114 yards, leading rusher for the team.
Look, anytime you put up 415 all-purpose yards, you're having yourself a day.
What is Lincoln Riley at this point?
People say people are quarterback whisperers. I think he's the best example of it, that kind of person really does exist, and he is in the state of Oklahoma. And for Jalen Hurts, former starter, and briefly his former backup, Alabama, Mississippi State.
Yeah, this is not
exciting as a football game, but just an interesting development.
a kind of sad turn of events, realistically.
You feel bad for the guy.
You have to. He seems like such a good guy. I think everybody knows who we're talking about at this point. That's Tua Tagovailoa dislocating his hip. Yeah,
Popped it back in on the field.
did they?
They did.
Wow,
Had surgery this morning. They airlifted him to Birmingham.
and then they flew him out to
from
Houston,
Starkville.
right, for the surgery.
He had surgery this morning. Per Adam Schefter, his prognosis is very good, so it went well. You love to you don't like seeing guys' careers end to injuries, especially before they make it to the league. I don't think he's a first overall pick anymore. He's had surgery on each of his ankles. He just had surgery on his hip. For me, he goes down as one of the most exciting quarterbacks to, or maybe even one of the best quarterbacks not to win a Heisman, at least for his college game.
Yeah, I'll give you that. He might also be one of the most exciting or one of the most electric Alabama quarterbacks we've seen in years, realistically.
Since I've been alive, he's been the most exciting.
And certainly, I would say the most pro-ready. Because, I mean, even at this point, I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts at the next level. Just because he had success with Alabama, but we don't know how he's going to do at the next level. We've seen what Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks have turned into.
And you know what? One thing selfishly, I'm glad Jalen transferred for it. I don't like wanting to root for Alabama players. I don't like Alabama, but Tua and Jalen, both extremely likable guys.
Oh yeah, they seem like class acts just
and
off the field.
I've met Jalen Hurts at Funky's. Him and AJ Brown are boys. I ran into them after the season a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But nice dude. You know, you want to root for the guys, but I've got. SEC Shorts actually had a really nice tribute to Tua, just saying some of the records he broke, but the most important one was the quickest a nation learned how to pronounce someone's name. Because I remember when he came in, announcers were scrambling to figure out what the heck to call this kid that was lighting it up.
They just calling him Tua in that championship game? They weren't even going by his last name.
They didn't even bother.
No.
And that was for the SEC championship game, so not bad announcers by any means.
No.
I've got kind of a hot take on this.
Yeah, fire away.
Getting injured now, it's going to drop him in the draft. That might be the best thing that ever happens to his career. If you look at some of the most well-paid quarterbacks and most successful quarterbacks of all time, they didn't make their money on their first contract. With the exception of guys like Mitch Trubisky, who get drafted way higher than maybe they deserve and underperform at the next level. Look at guys instead.
That's Mitchell to you, sir?
I don't want to get started on him. I have too many friends from Chicago to say anything too mean. But you look at guys like Aaron Rodgers. Injuries made him fall in the draft, wound up going to a stable Green Bay team. You look at what he's done now. You look at guys like Dak Prescott. Fell a little lower. He wound up going to the second-best offensive line in football. You don't want to get drafted by a team that lost almost all of their games the year before. There's a reason they're picking that high in the draft. Are you going to make the same amount of money you would your first 3, 4, 5 years? No, by no means. But I think Tua's got what it takes to do it at the next level. And if he winds up being able to learn behind a good quarterback on a good team with an established coaching staff and nothing crazy going on with their medical department, this could be one of the better things to happen to his career, provided it doesn't get derailed by injury.
I mean, on that note, I'm trying to think of what teams there are that are like that are currently like looking for a quarterback. I would like to say San Diego, or excuse me, the Carson Chargers, as we established last week. But yeah, we know Phillip Rivers is on his downward career path, but that coaching staff is still in flux. They're still moving to LA. We don't know what's going on with that team.
And where do you see, ignoring kind of, for the time being, when we think teams are going to pick, where do you think Tua is going to get picked? Like, what range, pick-wise? I think he's still a first-rounder.
Yeah, I still think he's a first-rounder. I'm trying to really place it. I could see him probably at 16 to 20 range.
Yeah, I see
realistically.
I see him just a little bit higher. I think he's shown the flashes of greatness, and he's a relatively pro-ready guy. But if you look in, let's say, the 15 to 20 range, Titans, Colts, Eagles, the Jags have the Rams pick currently since at 18, Panthers and Raiders again.
So I would say no to the Jags, only because they seem locked in with their pair of quarterbacks right now.
They're going to see what they've got there.
Definitely. Titans. The Titans is a hard maybe, only because they've had to really move away from Mariota. And they've been focusing on, who's that, Ryan Tannehill now?
Yeah, and Tannehill remains to be Ryan Tannehill. I think anywhere around there I could see him going Titans. I think the Colts are happy with Brissett. Obviously, we're going to be I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about in the draft later on. But on those just pre-playoff, maybe like early playoff teams, if he winds up on a better team because of it, he's going to have a much, much better career. You don't want to see him get ruined by a team like the Browns or the Redskins or the Dolphins.
But couldn't you totally see him going to Miami with their later pick in the draft, the one they got from Pittsburgh?
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that.
Because that,
Yeah, he
that
absolutely could.
likely, if I'm being honest, that's probably an early playoff pick. That's not
Yeah.
going to be a late.
That's where
a
I
late
see it.
pick. So
So in the
that's certainly possible.
23, 24 range.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which at that point, I would likely have to shed a tear for Tua.
Yeah, you got to. Hey, at least he's going to have a good time in Miami with his early round pick money. That's all you can hope for. But hey, wishing the best to the kid.
know.
Obviously, you never want to see somebody's career go down with injury like that. But while we're talking about the draft, you want to move on to the NFL?
Sure. I think we should take a quick break though before that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get this one ad out, and then we'll be right back with a little bit of NFL, and we'll see what else we got going on around the horn. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the G and Finn Show on Rebel Radio. I think we're going to get right into some NFL. Not an exceptionally exciting weekend in the National Football League, but what games did you catch? Anything you enjoyed?
I caught a little bit this weekend. I really enjoyed, as much as horrible as this sounds, I kind of enjoyed seeing the Broncos blow it.
That was hysterical.
Because, we've got Kirk, you like that, Cousins, with the comeback there. The Vikings will win that game 27-23. There was a 20-point fourth quarter comeback from the Vikes.
And for someone who's not a fan of either team, I think I enjoyed that game.
It was entertaining.
I enjoyed that game more than a lot of people who don't care about either team, just because a couple of my buddies who are roommates, one's a Vikings fan, and the other's a Broncos fan.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And just seeing the flip script in that room was a lot of fun. Cardinals keeping up with the 49ers, that was interesting to me. They played just a couple weeks ago in the middle of the week. I want to say it was a Thursday night game.
Probably.
I hope so, because I watched it at Funky's. I'm really hoping that wasn't a Monday night game. But Kyler Murray's playing pretty well. Not a world beater, but
He's been good.
he's living up to what you need your first-round pick to do. First overall, I still think so. Plenty of time for the kid to develop, and he's keeping up with probably the best defense, first or second best defense in the NFL this year. Not a bad game either.
No, did you see that? I saw a clip of Larry Fitzgerald just coming off bodying Bosa. That was incredible. I love to see that.
And you know what? Even if I'm a second overall pick defensive end, I would be honored to be tackled by Larry Fitzgerald.
Have to be.
Thank him.
He's a legend.
He really is, and it was exciting. I got to take a trip out to a very bad game. It was Lions-Cardinals in Phoenix, or Greater Phoenix area. I forget which city it's in.
So isn't it Scottsdale?
Something like that.
It's somewhere out
Whatever
there.
it was. Decent game. The stadium was fun. The game was terrible. Both teams wanted their team to lose so they could get the pick they wanted. But got to see Larry Fitzgerald break the record for most receptions by one player on one team.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to see. It's a legend in the flesh. Those black uniforms this year are nice.
They are nice.
I love them.
really like those.
I'm liking the teams doing black uniforms. I'm a Jets fan. You're a Jets fan. I like those. I think they're real clean. And then another game I caught, Patriots-Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I have that Super Bowl rematch right there.
Yeah, and AFC East matched up with the NFC East, so they're all playing each other this year. 17-10. Patriots win.
That's a weird scoreline. I just wouldn't expect from that game. Only because, the Patriots defense has been awesome. They've been incredible all season.
They've been breaking fantasy.
Yeah, pretty much. Whereas Philly, their offense hasn't been superb, but their defense hasn't been that great either all year. So for it to be this low scoring, I think that's pretty interesting. There was something kind of funky about this game that you had picked out for us.
Yeah, and I noticed it just because Julian Edelman, he used to play quarterback. I don't think in college, but at least in high school. But they like to run those tricky things once in a while. Romo called it out before it even happened. He's like, they might do something tricky here, and of course he was right. It's Prometheus. He knows everything that's going to happen before it does. Someone needs to hire him as a DC, but I wouldn't give up that CBS gig if I were him.
No, it's cushy.
Honestly. But, yeah, this is the first time in Brady's career since Michigan he had fewer touchdowns than someone else on the team.
Yeah, it was a nice throw, too, by Edelman.
No, it was clean.
It was a good throw, good play run. And then we've got our Sunday night game from last night. Terrible.
I didn't enjoy watching it.
It was awful.
I only cared because a buddy bet an over on Gurley's yards.
What was the over? What was it set at?
I don't remember what it was, but he easily met it.
Well, yeah, because he's not been very good this year, and he only ran for 97 yards.
Listen, I'm well aware of this. Also, this guy outside the
Do you have
studio
Todd-
looks
wait.
just like my coworker, and it's kind of freaking me out.
Wait, do you have Todd Gurley on your fantasy team?
No,
Okay, good.
I have
was-
Saquon,
Oh, well, yeah, he's...
which means I'm
Killing.
losing, which
Well-
means I'm 5-5.
Well, he just has a bye this week, so that's not his fault.
Yeah. And speaking of teams on bye this week, Seahawks and Titans both on bye, so AJ and DK got to make it to the Ole Miss LSU game.
That was pretty cool to see them there.
Fun to see those guys. That's one of the most exciting things about going to a P5 school is you see these guys. I mean, I had psychology with Evan Ingram back when I was a freshman. That was fun. And then, seeing a guy who, I've ran into these guys on the square. I've dapped him up on the Walk of Champions. I started that guy on my fantasy team, watched him win on Monday night. Yeah, I went to
Yeah.
college with that guy. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually have a picture with Evan Engram at a women's basketball game. I think that was 2 years ago when his sister was playing at Georgia.
Oh, yeah, I forgot
And they
his
were in
sister
town.
plays. I forgot his
Yeah,
sister
she's
plays.
really good, too. She's nasty.
I've seen him post about it, but that's most of the college women's basketball content I get, other than you running the PA for them every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
But Monday night game, we've got a game in Mexico City this year. We were supposed to have one last year, but after a Shakira concert ruined the field conditions 3 days before, wound up flexing it to L.A.
I can't blame them, though.
So
I bet it was a great concert.
Kansas City will travel to Mexico City favored by 5.5 over the Chargers. Could be a weird game.
E-
What's your over-under on laser pointer incidents?
Hopefully few. Probably at least one, though.
Always is. But
It could. You're right. It could be a weird game. These matchups between these two teams can, always go a weird way. Phillip Rivers hasn't been fantastic this year, but looking at, the Chiefs, their defense also has not been very good.
And for me, an important fantasy matchup, if Patrick Mahomes throws for 11 touchdowns, I've got a pretty good shot. So we'll see. This one could go either way for me. It's going to be exciting to watch. But, nice to have Mahomes back and healthy. Always good to see him playing.
Always good to see good football.
Football's the NFL is better having him in it,
No doubt.
which I think one of the highest compliments you can give a player is, hey, we like the sport more. People enjoy watching the sport more because you play it. But you got anything else exciting going on in the NFL?
In the NFL, nothing really comes to mind. But just before we close out the show, unless you had anything, do you have anything for NFL?
Just one real quick observation.
Yeah, what's that?
John Gruden's a genius. The Raiders have the Bears' first-round pick this spring.
Yep.
They offloaded Khalil Mack for it. Khalil Mack's underperformed. Important part of the Bears' defense, but it's nowhere near what it was last year. And Clennon Farrell, everyone was confused when he went at 4. Everyone was making
been
fun of
great.
Gruden in the offseason, saying it was a clown show in Oakland. It was all AB, and this was all AB. Gruden made some
Yeah.
solid moves. I almost feel like that brought the team together. Everyone thought they were going to have a top 10 pick and a playoff pick. It's still going that way, but maybe not with the same team's
Yeah.
picks that we thought.
No, maybe not. Might be reversed there, but
And with 0 sacks tonight, or yesterday, the Bears tied for sacks with Oakland at 25. So you know what? Props to Gruden.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if he necessarily saw something he didn't like in Khalil Mack because there's really not much not to like.
Yeah, but that first-round pick could be anything.
Exactly.
It could even be Khalil Mack.
But
so,
what if it's not?
I think that's all I've got today. You got anything to add?
No, that's all I've got. But we do have one other bit of Ole Miss sports tomorrow night at the Pavilion. Ole Miss men's basketball team is playing against Seattle. Ole Miss is currently 3-0. Campus game for the NIT season tip-off. They're playing Seattle coming into town. They are 2-3, 0-2 away. Pretty much just expect Ole Miss to hopefully cruise that one for a win.
But hey, it's always a good night in Club Red.
Always. That's all we've got for today. I've been George Giro.
And I've been John Finnegan.
And we'll see you back here on 92.1 FM Rebel Radio Friday night at 6 o'clock.